Congrats on 5 subs. Thank you, thank you. Every sub matters. Just wait until I roll out monetization. I'll make so much money. had coffee here. Coffee. Have a good day at work. Oh, yes. Not you, actually. But yeah, also have a good day at work, inoculating. No overtime today. Woo Woo is untrainable. Oh, we'll smack her then. Slap that bitch in the face. I've tried. She does not listen. Well, Chocho is easy to train. Hey! Stop fighting. Give me a sec. Okay, I'm back.
I'm in a hotel in London, and every so often I can hear an underground train go by because
Beautiful.
I am in a room that is underground and that has no windows.
Interesting.
That's good. That's healthy. I like that.
Is
It's good for your health. Yeah.
having no sun, like I'm in Silo?
You don't need sun.
Yeah, look
There's
at me.
you
I'm
can
a
take
gamer.
a pill for that.
Do you know that when you book the hotel room, does it say P.S. Underground Bunker?
Okay, so I booked this whole trip on points.
That's what did you.
Points mean prizes. And when I booked this hotel, so many people were like, oh, the room is so nice. However, wish I'd known there was no window. And I thought, that's not going to happen to me. And lo and behold, it did, friends. So I'm a mole man for the purposes of this podcast.
You're also a very sickly mole man.
I'm really hoping that I sound a little bit sexy.
You actually, you picked it up.
No.
Oh, now you're coughing, so we ruined it.
It's great. Like when you laugh, you sound like, my grandma who's a lifelong smoker. It's comforting in a way. It sounds great.
That's the thing. No, it's no, I tried to send a voice note to a friend of mine because they said, "Can you do the Ronald Weasley Snape voice?" And I tried to do it, but I kept coughing at the end of it. And so I was like, well, any goodwill I got from that impression has gone. I don't have COVID. I'm fine. I think it's an upper respiratory thing. So I'm sorry, everyone. I don't sound as good as usual. Maybe I sound better.
At least. I mean, I think I think as soon as we turn the camera on, you like perked up a little bit. And that's good. We need you because we're dropping like flies. We have you sick, and we also have Ralph, who is not here.
Yeah.
Ralph went to Tokyo Game Show, and then he got there and he got sick, which is just what he does.
Oh my God.
He travels and then he gets a cold.
Oh my God.
This guy, he's cursed. So he's not with us, but we are joined by Ben Hansen from MinMax. Hi, Ben.
Hello. Thanks for having me back. I think last time I was on, I was talking Spider-Man, and you weren't here. So let's just spend the entire episode talking about Spider-Man 2 if you're up for it, Jake.
That's fine. Okay, yeah. So in my memory, because I emailed you and I'm like, hey, we've never had you on. And you politely just were like, yeah, sure.
Sure, from your perspective. And that's all that matters. We're just living in your world, man.
That's right.
Exactly.
But no, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I love the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, you guys have been really busy over at MinMax, right? Mm-hmm. You've been doing a ton of interviews. You've had people on. You had Jason on a couple of days ago.
Yeah, Jason Schreier to talk about his Blizzard book. That guy is making the rounds, baby. Look, he's a man who pushes for transparency in the game industry. He better share how many books he's selling. After this podcast circuit he's on, come on, Jason.
Yeah, I want to know.
Bless Jason, because I'm really sick and I had to rearrange a bunch of stuff this week. And there was a point where Jason was like, oh, I can't do Tuesday because I'm on Giant Bomb. You know those guys? And I was like, yes, I do. I'm sorry. If I was at work, you would have probably been talking to me twice this week.
Oh God. But yeah, we've done a lot of interviews lately. We revived the rapid fire interviews, which we did back at Game Informer. We started doing those back in like 2014 for No Man's Sky. And so when Game Informer sadly went down, it was just a moment of like, well, we started that. I think we should just keep it rolling. It's kind of an ambiguous headline. Let's keep it rolling, moving into the future. So it's been great.
Speaking of Game Informer, I did want to know, you had just recently put out some stuff about Game Informer Office stuff, essentially where this stuff ended up. How did that go down? Oh
boy. So it's a long story. So yeah, when Game Informer was shut down by GameStop, we've kind of kicked off a whole celebration of Game Informer at MinMax. We have a whole playlist on our YouTube channel if you want to check it out. But, bringing back some old timers for a big roundtable discussion, bringing back the people who were just let go to talk about their entire experience, which you had them on the show as well. Thank you for that. So we've been doing this big celebration of Game Informer. And we still have some big documentaries to come. One big documentary and one small fun documentary on the horizon for that. But is an odd thing where, it's a long story, but Sarah Podorsky at MinMax and I were shopping at the Mall of America for content. You know the internet these days.
That's just where you guys go though, right? As Minneapolis people, you just hang out there, right?
Most of us live there like little mole people in the basement of the Mall of America, yeah.
Is the Mall of America that one with the shell shock spinner?
Yeah, you know it?
Because I follow a woman on TikTok who is like the queen of the shell shock, Tara. She goes on and she like gets as many spins as she can.
Yeah.
She's a great follow on TikTok because she's like, today I got
bizarre.
700 spins on Shell Shock. She's the queen spinner of Shell Shock.
Yeah,
what is Shell Shock? Wait a minute, back up.
It's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ride. Yeah. It's all like Nickelodeon themed. They have a whole amusement park in the middle of the Mall of America, which I think is still the biggest mall in America at this point. And so it used to be Camp Snoopy, and it was way cooler and better. And then they sold out, and now it's just a bunch of SpongeBob crap. Yeah, you're wearing the shirt. It would have been right up your alley.
I know.
So anyways, we were shopping in the Mall of America and making content for MinMax's channel. And then we had heard that once Game Informer shut down, that suddenly a Dark Souls 3 statue appeared in the Mall of America's GameStop. And we're like, that's funny. Game Informer used to have a Dark Souls 3 statue. I wonder how that works. And so we were like mic'd up to do this whole shopping spree thing. And so I just went to the GameStop and like didn't try to get the employee too much on camera and stuff. But I was just asking him like, hey, where did that statue come from? And he's like, oh, we got it from Game Informer. When they shut down, they invited us all in there. We could just grab stuff.
Invited.
So it's a complicated story. I think it's a little out of context. The clip kind of went viral on Twitter, which is fun to see. But at the same time, so I called around to other GameStops to try and get a sense of what happened. And it's a long story. But basically, the Game Informer office that I used to work at, that a bunch of folks used to work at, I left in 2019 to start MinMax after some layoffs at Game Informer. But that old office that we love so much, that was shut down in 2020. And all of the stuff was moved to kind of this interim office, which is its own saga where they were building it out and then they were down to just like, we just need to hook up the phone lines. And the GameStop says, oh, we don't want to spend money on that. So instead, we're just going to shut down the entire interim office as well. But then lo and behold, they were actually secretly paying for it for years and just didn't tell Game Informer. So it's a long, complicated, dumb story because GameStop is a very dumb company. So anyways, there's this interim office that all of the old Game Informer stuff was kind of just shoved into a bunch of boxes. It was a mess everywhere. And so it turns out that when Game Informer was shut down, they invited like high performing GameStop managers to come to the office primarily to load up the U-Hauls so they could ship off all this stuff to Irvine or what is it called? To Texas, GameStop's Texas headquarters. Irvine, Texas, something like that.
Right.
Yeah. And so, so they shipped all that stuff off. But in the video, the guy we talked to, he says they're like, yeah, we're allowed to grab stuff. They're like duplicates. We could grab it. But he also said a lot of stuff that was clearly untrue of like, yeah, they had a bunch of wild stuff in their office. He didn't know that I had worked there for 9 years. So he's like, Game Informer has wild stuff. They had like a Nintendo PlayStation prototype. So, no, we did not. So, so I think it was already kind of pushing the limits a little bit. And so then calling around to other GameStops, they said like, no, we couldn't take anything for ourselves. So it was probably a situation of like, they loaded up everything into the U-Haul to send down to Texas. And then maybe if there are some duplicates, maybe some things on the side, it's like, hey, go ahead and treat yourselves, GameStop employees. So everything, it's not like all of the Game Informer archives and specifically the Game Informer Vault, as we called it, which had a copy of every game that Game Informer was shipped throughout the years. It's not like that has just been put up in a GameStop retro store or some crap like that. Although it was confusing messaging because this guy said that GameStop was sending it down to a museum in Texas. And there is a museum in Texas that isn't that far from GameStop's headquarters. And I reached out to them and they said, well, this is the first we're hearing of it. We haven't had any contact with GameStop. So it seems like the stuff is just going to GameStop's headquarters to sit in boxes. Hopefully not that Ryan Cohen, the CEO of GameStop, can just take all these games and put it in his personal collection. But who the hell knows? It's a bizarre situation. So the upside of it is, you know, all that stuff that they got, you know, there's some good stuff in there. There's stuff like, you know, the production department's archives of like all the digital files throughout the history of Game Informer. And it's like, oh, I wish that was in a museum somewhere. There's just irreplaceable stuff. But by and large, you know, the games that were in the vault, yes, there were a lot of them. Yes, it's an unfortunate situation where some Game Informer employees like donated their own games to that archive to kind of build out the Game Informer museum. And if all that's just going to sit in GameStop's headquarters until that company implodes, that's a real bummer. But there was some genuinely priceless stuff at Game Informer that, we're creating a documentary we started filming a documentary about it back in 2016. So that's going to be coming up at MinMax here. And so that stuff is safe. So there's a silver lining to this stuff, but it's just I don't know, just a weird punch in the gut for, I think, Game Informer employees. They're like, oh, all of our old stuff that we weren't allowed to have access to, now it's just shipped off to GameStop. It's messy.
Just another.
It feels like the archives from Indiana Jones, like it's just in a crate somewhere in a massive warehouse somewhere waiting to be discovered by a gamer 1,000 years from now.
Yeah.
Which would actually be kind of cool in a weird way.
I know. We did a tour because, back in March, things weren't looking good for Game Informer. And so Dan Reichert, you know him, and I and Alex Van Aken, who's on the show, and Leo Vader from MinMax, we all did like a video tour of that interim office to try and just capture as much as we could on film before Game Informer shut down. And we posted that once Game Informer closed. You can kind of get a glimpse in that video of some of the cool treasures and archives that were there, because it's an incredible collection. And the goal was, so the idea is that Game Informer vault, it's like that stuff was shipped to the employees for reviewing. A lot of other outlets, those people would just take that stuff home, but it's like, well, no, we're going to keep it in this museum archive so that we can all access it together. And so in a best case scenario, all of that stuff would be donated to a museum. And it'd be nice if GameStop did that instead of just sitting on a bunch of old NES games like Smaug down there in Texas or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
Man. Well, I do kind of want to pivot. We were talking about all the crazy stuff you guys do at MinMax. It's really cool. And one of the big things you guys do is meetups. But recently you had, correct me if I'm wrong, you had a meetup scheduled for Asheville, North Carolina, which unfortunately right now is suffering massively because of a hurricane.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Like, how long ago was that scheduled that you guys were going to go there?
It's a really obviously tragic events here, and we'll get to that, not to make it, hey, it's all about us. But it's a weird situation where we thought it'd be really fun to post on Patreon at the start of this year and say, hey, everybody, pitch your hometown for the big community meetup. Because for 5 years now at MinMax, we've been saying, don't fly out to our meetups. They're fun. We all hang out and talk at a brewery, but I don't want people to like fly out to these things. If you're in the area, swing by. Right. And so it's like, wait for the big community meetup. So finally, it's like, this is going to be the big one. Everybody fly out for this one, pitch your hometown. And then we narrowed it down to 7. And then we had the community vote, and Asheville, North Carolina won the vote for the big community meetup because it's such a beautiful town. A lot of people wanted to go there. And so we were lining it all up. We were going to go last weekend, and then it was pretty late in the process. A couple people were like, actually, that doesn't work for me. Can we bump it 1 weekend back? And so we did that. And then this hurricane hit and has just devastated the town. And so we could have been there last weekend. And that seems like just a nightmare to say, everybody come on down for this community meetup. There's a hurricane, but it's in Florida. Who cares? Not that who cares, but you know what I mean? Like it won't hit us. And you just have no idea. Because I mean, Asheville's 300 miles inland, and it still was just destroyed. I mean, the river rose, a total of 26 feet. There's over 200 people dead, 500 people missing. It just leveled the town.
The videos are horrifying, like just houses floating away. It's such a shame. Yeah,
so we pivoted, obviously frantically tried to get the word out there, like, don't go to Asheville, everybody. Community meetup is canceled. But now we're doing a fundraising drive to help the Asheville neighborhood. And so we are raising money for AmeriCares, who's supplying medical supplies, health programs there. I mean, the hospitals are overwhelmed. And so, we have a whole charity drive. And at the time where we were going to have that community meetup in Asheville, now we're doing a charity stream on MinMax's YouTube channel to also raise money for AmeriCares. And 100% of that is going towards helping Asheville and the surrounding community. Because, it's interesting that, supplies are running into Asheville, but there's still a bunch of small towns around Asheville that AmeriCares is often like the first people on the scene, they're saying, to come in with medical supplies and to help these folks. And so, bit.ly/MinMax Asheville is where you can go if you want to donate to that, because it's been just a bizarre series of events to have to pivot from community meetup to, okay, now we're still going to meet, but it's going to be digitally, and it's going to be a fundraiser for that town that we hope can be rebuilt, and then we can go celebrate it next year.
Yeah, but to pivot and do the right thing like that, I think is great, especially with a community of gamers, because I mean, I say we collectively, but like we're known for really raising, like, Twitch streamers, YouTubers, media have raised a lot of money in the past. Like, gamers do rile around causes. So this is a great decision on your guys' end.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and just to tie everything together, we're going to have some charity auctions happening throughout the stream as well, and we have some Game Informer specific stuff that's going to be up for auction, and all that money's going to AmeriCares as well to help Asheville.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, best of luck with it.
Thank you.
Okay, so to kick off our first topic, we got a user question from contact@friendspersecond.com. You saw me have to look. I still have to read it.
No, you are getting there.
How long will this joke go on?
Is it a joke?
When will I get better? When will I get smarter?
Is it a
joke? So this question comes from Andrew Pierce, who says, hello. Huge fan of the show. I'm really happy that you guys are not only reporting on the latest exciting games, but also asking developers and companies hard questions about the state of the industry.
Yeah.
Thanks.
The hard questions.
That being said, this console generation has really been about remasters. Lately, I have felt really burnt down on remasters and have been looking forward for newer single-player IP or experiences. Do you think part of this is due to the outcome of the pandemic driving companies and capital investment groups to buy up developers and force them into creating live service games, multiplayer games? After the failures of Suicide Squad and Concord, for example, do you think that Sony and Xbox are making multiple remasters to recoup the costs and develop those single-player experiences, or will they continue to remaster more games in their collection because it's less expensive and maybe faster than creating new IP? That is Andy from Chicago, who says, P.S. Jake, where is my Friday free pizza? Well, that's a big question, but for me, I've said this a lot in my videos. I think these companies view remasters, re-releases, remakes as the safer bet. Mm-hmm. We've talked in the past about how the cost of borrowing money and like stuff with these corporations, it takes mountains to get things going. I've just kind of viewed it as, hey, these things are proven. Let's bring them back. They work. We know people like them. What did you just do in quotations?
Relatively speaking, because it's still hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they are cheap.
Yeah.
Cheaper than creating a brand new AAA IP from scratch. Like you said, there is a proven track record of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who have bought those games in the past. And so for the bean counters, so to speak, it's like, it's an easy one. Yeah, sure, we'll just remaster it. And that's why we're getting Horizon. Yeah. I need to stop pulling that face at Horizon. I feel so bad.
It's a good game.
Is it?
But it does. I like that first game. Yeah, the second one definitely has its fans as well. And it feels like it just came out, but 7 years is a decent amount of time. It obviously feels silly. I mean, the upside is you can see it as the team that is doing the remastering, like at least they're getting more skills, they're understanding the tools. Yeah. Maybe it can kind of move them towards the future a little bit to create something new. I think of a studio like Grezzo, who now is developing The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. And this was like their big shot to create an original Zelda, but they got their start doing the remake of Ocarina of Time and then remastering Link's Awakening or remaking Link's Awakening, So there is a pathway to eventually these studios making cool original stuff. But in that question, I thought it was interesting. I think that's right, though, that when interest rates were so low and every company in the world around COVID was just buying a ton of other studios, buying a ton of IP, kind of when Embracer was inhaling instead of exhaling and exploding. Remember that period of time? Yes. That probably has led to a big surge in remasters because people just gobbled up new IP and it's like, well, what do we do? I don't know if we can afford to make a new Destroy All Humans game, but let's test the waters with a remaster. Let's test these waters. And now we've just kind of been on the downslope of all of these IP hoarders testing waters all over the place.
That's the thing where it's like, I am a sucker for a remaster as much as anyone because I, like any person here who has become who has attached onto a piece of media, I want to be able to replay it now, but I want it to feel and I want it to be like how I thought it was when I first played it. So when I first played Pokemon Yellow, for example, or Pokemon Red, that game felt to me as a child so much bigger than what it actually was. Like, it was 2D, basically. It was, you know, it was no color, nothing. It was just, you know, this thing that I poured imagination into. So when I played Let's Go Pikachu, and it was this 3D, beautiful, colored thing with all of the sound effects and the music, I was like, this is what it felt like to play. This is what I thought it was when I was a kid. And playing a bunch of remakes and remasters has certainly felt that way, because of the way that things are remade these days, because we have access to so many more incredible tools and artistry and, you know, whatever. And so that part of me will always love a remake, because I'm like Dead Space, for example, last year. Dead Space holds up because fundamentally the original Dead Space was incredible. And the bones of that game, like, you can play the original Dead Space on Xbox through backwards compatibility now, and it's still pretty much a perfect game. But then you take what Motive has done and make it shiny and like update the graphics and like change the sound effects, the way that they used sound, for example. Make it so impressive. And I was like, that's what I remember playing. Even though if you really go back to 2008, that's not what you were playing at all. You were playing something that looked very, very different. So I will always love a remake in that regard. And then there's stuff like Demon Souls and whatever. However, we are also at a point with video games where stuff takes too long. Takes way too long to make. You're talking 5 years. And that's a kind of like a ballpark minimum for a lot of games, right? And it's so expensive. And, you know, interest rates, the games industry being what it is, people are not willing to make those big bets. And so, hey, you know what's easy? You know what's way cheaper? You know what's going to gauge interest in our properties? Let's remaster or remake the old stuff. And so it's a weird one, because like I love a remake. Like I loved Resident Evil 4 remake. Resident Evil 4 remake was one of the best games of last year, easily. But it's also because it was a remake of one of the best games ever made.
Yeah.
But does that mean that we are now sitting, does that mean the game developers, the games industry is now sitting on their laurels and just like not pushing forward enough because they're looking to the past too much, because the past is what's going to carry them forward? I don't know. It's a weird one. So Jake, how's Silent Hill 2?
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that. Yeah. It's interesting for me because I am very much like, oh man, I need that new thing. I need that new hit. What's that next thing?
I've got that sound you've been looking for.
It's the siren.
It's hard to make new interesting stuff. So like I'm willing to wait, because when it does come around and it hits, it's great. A new thing is always so exciting, and we still do get new stuff. But for me, with the remake, re-release, reboot, whatever, it's stuff like Silent Hill 2 that I get more excited about. You know, cleaning up Horizon or even Dead Space doesn't really do as much for me. But when it's something that's very old, and now as someone in my 30s is learning that like there are people that haven't even experienced these things at all, that's what I can't help but get like a little corny, a little excited for. Resident Evil 2, when that remake came out, I was so excited just to kind of like be this weird shepherd to being like, I approve of this. This is a good remake. This was one of the first video games I was obsessed with, and I am happy for all of you to see it. Like that's just such a good feeling to buy it for a friend, to recommend a friend to play it who's never played it. So those are the things I chase. And Silent Hill, with its age and with its strangeness, and with the fact that we never thought we would see it again, like that's the type of remake thing I really like. And first impressions of Silent Hill 2, it's pretty good. Seems like they did a pretty good job.
They did it? You're kind of a higher pitch. I'm trying to gauge this.
Yeah, so I'm not finished with it. At the time of making this video, we're a day before embargo, so I got to crunch. But it's hitting all the right notes. It feels a little less grimy and gross, but I think that's part of the visual filter more than anything.
It's not as gross.
Yeah, there's something about the crunchiness of the original game, and I think part of it is just like the low fidelity. It's so hard to explain. Like it's so hard to put your finger on.
Does it feel like, so I never played Silent Hill 2, so this is me coming at it from like a complete newcomer. Does it feel more sanitary? Like I don't understand what you mean by like less gross. Because for me, like that game, I don't know, I've seen pictures of Pyramid Head and whatever, and I'm just like, ooh, I feel like if I played that game, I would feel like there was coating of dust on me, like something that I want to clean off. You know, that's what I would
dust
want
and also goo at the same.
Yeah.
Gooey dust.
It's. I'm gonna probably like contradict myself here, but it's just it might have even been everything around it, like from the original game, like the UI, the text treatment, the marketing, the box art, everything around it felt different. The characters, the way they look in those like creepy old pre-rendered cutscenes, like it's missing that little bit of something. It's a je ne sais quoi. But having said that, sound design, incredible. Really elevates it. The music is there. It's great. There's some new additions that I think are very good. The original composer was still involved.
Oh, wow.
They don't, from what I have seen, everything is intact. They kind of do a little bit of, you know how Resident Evil 2 Remake gave us a little bit more of Leon and Claire? Yeah. Like it was something that just kind of wasn't really around in the original game. So in this, it's like you get a little bit more out of Maria. You get a little bit more out of James. And I honestly think that the performances elevate this so much. James was like a plank of wood in the old game. And we loved him, but it's just how it was. You projected things onto him. Like you were into the story enough. It didn't really matter. But like here, his facial expressions, the way he speaks, just really, really hammers it home. And I didn't realize how much of a difference something like that would make until I saw it. And I was like, oh, wow, this is why something should be remade. When you get these characters and they kind of can breathe a little bit more life into them and really show them how they were originally intended. But maybe it was technological or writing or performance that was holding them back in the day. That's been really cool to see. It's definitely simple. It's very simple survival horror. You're managing your resources. You're hitting stuff with a stick. You have a couple of guns. But for me, so far, it's really been that like turn off the lights, put headphones on, and just play till 3 o'clock in the morning type of game. And that's my favorite type of game. So the fact that it naturally has been hitting that for me, I'm very happy. It has been a long time since I've replayed Silent Hill 2.
Okay.
But the feeling is there. And I've even went back and like kind of compared and contrasted now and like fired up a playthrough and like checked out old Silent Hill 2. And they definitely kept it very similar. Some characters feel ever so slightly different because of their performances. Maria isn't as creepy or like over the top seductressy as she was in the original, but they give her a couple more voice lines that helps flesh that out. Instead of her just kind of hamming it up, they add dialogue, they add a little bit more to make it like a more well-rounded thing. I can keep rambling about it, but I was so skeptical. I think
a lot of people were when they saw that it was Bloober and that first trailer didn't really do much, and then there were the hands-on, and then like they had a couple other trailers, and people were like, oh, maybe they've done it. Have they upgraded anything? Like updated anything? Because if you look at Shadow of the Colossus, for example, like Bluepoint changed the control scheme to make it something that's more palatable for how we currently play games and like what the kind of modern best practices are for control schemes. Have they done anything like that?
It has that. It has weapon swapping with a D-pad. Key item, you find a key or you find a puzzle piece. It's very easy to just menu access, put it in. It's not clunky. It's, the camera angle is obviously changed, third person ADS, stuff like that. Melee is interesting. Melee is something that I saw in previews and I was like, that looks kind of rough. But it's very simple. It's very exchangey. You guys played Callisto Protocol?
Oh yeah.
I didn't actually.
So it's very give and take. It's very whack, whack. Okay, now I dodge. Whack, whack. Okay, now I dodge. But it doesn't feel as quick time event-y as Callisto Protocol. So like you still have some freedom of movement there. But interestingly enough, I found myself still like emotionally invested in every simple throwdown for two reasons. Number one, it's pretty tough. Some enemies can mess you up pretty quickly. But number two, the enemies are just more imposing now. They feel like way more of a threat. In Silent Hill 2, especially like once you got the grips of it, the controls were clunky back in the day, but there was a point where like you were Doom Guy, like you were just like murdering these bastards, and they were just like, bleh. Now they feel like the nurse feels way more threatening. The enemies you encounter in the middle of the street feel a little more threatening, and that just made a big difference to me, and it really like helped me. So with the controls and stuff, you can keep mashing enemies when they're on the ground and give them a couple stomps, like Dead Space or something like that.
Yeah.
And like I found myself like doing it, like emotionally doing it and like instinctively doing it, and that's a good thing. I was like, that's a good thing right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's still clunky. And then there's some things with the UI I don't like with like the health on screen. So like I have little complaints and stuff like that. And I think hardcore fans might have some issue with some events being slightly rearranged, ever so slightly tweaked. For me so far, it hasn't really been much to make a difference, but it's like you go to a location here first, so you might get this gun a little bit earlier, or there's a new puzzle here. I've liked the new puzzles, but yeah, there are some changes, but it's Silent Hill, and I'm into it.
Is it will it be too scary for a lot of folks? I have never played it because I am a complete wimp, and when that original game came out, I watched my friends play it a bit, and I was like, absolutely no way. I mean, one of the scariest games of all time back in 2001, whenever that first game came out, or the second game came out. But I mean, is this one aging well? Do you feel like it's still going to scare a new generation here?
That's a really good question. I think what I can vouch for is the darkness. When a developer really understands and embraces and showcases darkness properly, that to me like makes all the difference. And I have had moments in the game where you're going down a hallway and your flashlight is like lighting the hallway, but then all of a sudden it's like claustrophobia sets in and the hallway slowly feels darker and your flashlight feels dimmer. And that's the stuff that was hitting for me.
Yeah.
And like that unknown, there's a couple jump scares here and there. They'll tuck an enemy here and there. But yeah, I think it's a lot of that like, oh God, oh, what is that sound I have to walk towards? What is that weird, icky, slimy sound I have to walk towards? The game is making me go there. Like, what is that? That stuff has really been working. And I think that coupled with like the general dreamlike state of the game, just the strange, weird, dreamy nature of it that they do pretty fairly nail compared to the first game. I think that's going to be very interesting for people. And I think it will give people some of that like horror dread, more than just like an Outlast, like, oh, like something like that.
Because are you playing it? Are you thinking of it like when you're playing it? Are you thinking, oh, this is like the old game, or are you thinking of it as like modern sensibility when you're playing it?
Damn, it's a good question. I think because it's been so long since I have played it, I am kind of just going into it somewhat fresh. There's moments where I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this, or like, oh, okay, time for Brookhaven Hospital, or time for the apartments. Like I have a rough going, but yeah, experiencing it as a new thing, especially because like the level design isn't one-to-one. So, and again, there's new puzzles, or puzzles are in different spots that I am kind of encountering it. I guess like, yeah, it's like a new modern game. So yeah, for a modern game, combat might be a little clunky, clunky, but I think it achieves what it's setting out to do.
That's cool. I mean, mission accomplished, Konami, which is not something we get to say too much this year.
Mission accomplished.
I know it feels so scary to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I have not finished it yet at the time of making this video, but I'm pretty deep in, and I am having a hell of a good time. Nice. A spooky time, if you will.
Would you recommend it to Ben and and I, who have not played the original.
And we're super scared, and we pee our pants every time there's a jump scare.
Definitely. Yeah,
you promised you wouldn't tell.
We bond on that level.
Yeah, we do.
No, the only thing I definitely want to see, though, is hopefully Konami also makes the original game more accessible as well. You can get it on GOG, I believe, but they put out that HD remaster decades back, and that didn't, console generations back, and that didn't really work out. So I hope that they can also release, and because the original game, just because of atmosphere and low, like low fidelity, like it still feels like its own special weird thing. So I'm hoping that there's a world for both at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I recommend, so far, I recommend the new Silent Hill 2, which I really did not know if I was going to say that.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Here we are.
Are there any games that you would want to be remastered? Like
I don't want to go first with that. Ben, you go.
That's remade or remastered.
Yeah.
First one comes to mind. Oh gosh, that's tough. Brave Fencer Musashi, I think would be an interesting PlayStation 1 remake.
Hell yeah.
Trying to think.
That's cool.
Yeah, going back to a bunch of that old Square stuff. Threads of Fate remade. I don't know, it's some weird deep cuts. But hey, we're getting Soul Reaver. I mean, these things won't stop.
Yeah.
I was actually, thinking about just kind of the trend of remakes and stuff. Like, I am really happy that Epic Mickey came back. I think that there is a spot for those games that, uneven, interesting games, I think are ripe for a remake or remaster, especially if it's being held back from the Wii, from the motion controls. But like I was playing that the other day, and like new Epic Mickey feels great to play. Like they added like a dash and a sprint, and it's like, oh, okay. You can still have problem with some puzzle design and navigation in the game, but like just on the core basis, like this is I think what we want from remasters these days, is kind of bringing back some wonky, uneven experiences if the tech has kind of aged well for them.
That's a really good example too, because that's one that I feel like there was so much build behind it, and it felt like it was a big deal, and like the history and the people involved making it. And then it released, and it really didn't feel like it got all of its time in the sun.
Mm-hmm.
It got a sequel, right? That was Epic Mickey too.
And there was the 3DS.
Oh boy.
Power of Illusion, I think it was called for that one. But that one wasn't bad.
Eternity.
I think that's what it was.
The Power of Eternity.
Power of Eternity. Oh my god. Yeah. I mean, for me, I like the remaster that I wanted was Mass Effect, right? But the thing that I really wish they had done was I wish that BioWare had implemented Mass Effect 3 shooting in Mass Effect 1. Because Mass Effect 1, I love it to death, don't get me wrong, but it's very clunky. And then Mass Effect 2 is you are moving into that action shooter space more and more. And then by Mass Effect 3, I think Mass Effect 3 is the best feeling gameplay of the three. And so I wish that there was like more cohesion between the three. In the lead up to the Veilguard, I really wish there was a Dragon Age Origins.
Yeah.
And I mean, Dragon Age 2, I don't care. I was never a big fan of Dragon Age 2. It's fine. But an Origins remaster would be amazing. I would love it. And also, if I'm keeping with the EA stuff, all the stuff about The Sims 4, I would kill for a Sims 2 remaster. Sims 2 is my favorite of the mainline Sims series. All of the Sims 2 it just works so well together. I think it is one of the best games ever made. I think it is easily one of the games that I have the most hours in of everything. And I really wish I could play it easily on a modern PC without having to get it from, I think, like a dodgy website. I don't even think it's on GOG or Origin or anything anymore.
Really?
I don't know. Like, you would have to check me on that. But like Sims 2, like I follow a bunch of TikTok accounts where they just make little like machinima videos using The Sims 2. I sound so sick right now. I am so aware that my voice is just like gone off a cliff.
Yeah, I thought you were like crying when you were talking about The Sims. I was like, wow, she really loves The Sims.
About The Sims. I've cried about The Sims for different reasons. No, I'm kidding. No, but I would just love it if The Sims 2. Or, I mean, that's the thing. Where it's like Okami is one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah.
Come out on every bloody platform at this point. There is nothing you could do to Okami.
That's how I am with a lot of the things I enjoy. Fable
Red Dead. Oh my god, Rockstar.
Coming to PC.
I saw the bloody PC stuff. Put it on there. Come on.
That's a good one.
That'd be a biggie. I mean, Jake, I'm sure you've talked about it 1,000 times in your career, but like, are you also in the camp of it'd be nice to see Konami take a stab at Metal Gear 1 and 2? Not solid, but Metal Gear 1 and 2.
Metal Gear 1 and 2, yes. Yeah. And this actually goes back to what you were saying before with a lot of these remakes kind of being like starting beds for teams to learn and then work and then move on to a bigger project. I would love to see, like, hopefully this Metal Gear Solid 3 remake turns out well. It looks good. People are saying it's pretty good. And I've kind of like I've kind of let my guard down a little bit on it. So like, I'm hoping that releases and that turns out all right. And I would love for a younger, hungry team to put their own spin on something that could use a new introduction to the world. I think people who are excited about Kojima and their team's work, but like, it's something that, in my opinion, is a little less sacred. Mm-hmm. Yep. I think there is room to have a lot of fun with that and a lot of fun to fill in the blanks and have a younger Snake and have these characters that show up in Metal Gear Solid 1, have like their own fun, new, younger spin on them. There's a lot of potential there. I get excited just talking about it.
And just like the skeleton of that story, like it'd be so fun to have that bridge from 5 to 1 and kind of complete the full circle here. And I do think like having that narrative that is ready to be fleshed out. Yeah, I think even the hardcore Kojima fans would not be, rioting in the streets compared to Metal Gear Solid 6 or something.
That's exactly that. Yeah, it's not a new, like, we brought back Snake again.
Right.
After 4. Here we go, guys. Like it feels less cynical. That's it. It's just doing something like this feels a little more fun, a little bit more different, and less cynical. And I would love to see that. That would just thinking about it. Like, have you ever seen, like, there's like really cool animations of the original game? Like, people do like anime versions of sequences from the original like MSX game. It's really cool.
Of like lighting Big Boss on fire with the hairspray and lighter. Like, I want to see that in HD. That sounds great. And plus,
I know, like, big memorable moments, they could be there. And I think I'd rather see that than like a remake of something sacred like Metal Gear Solid 1 that maybe tries a little too hard or pushes things a little bit in a direction that, as a fan, I don't really love.
You can just say Twin Snakes. That's just the shorthand for exactly what you're talking about. But I think it'd be so cool too, and this is weird and wonky, so stop us, Lucy, if you need to. But like the idea that Metal Gear Solid in so many ways is a strange remake of Metal Gear 2. And they like recycled so many ideas and gameplay concepts and stuff like that. So if you remade Metal Gear 2 for the MSX, it would almost in some ways now feel like remaking elements of Metal Gear Solid 1. It's a snake eating its own tail endlessly here.
That's very cool how you did that. I love that.
Like so much. I was going to say, if they're going to remake anything, it should be remastering Bloodborne for PC.
Oh yeah, that's it. Genius.
That was it.
There is one thing that I do like, is community efforts. Like Skyblivion specifically. The World of Oblivion was one, like, I was like, yeah, they should just make that again. I would love to live in that world again. I'm part of the problem, but just make that again. Right. But to have fans do their own thing on it and jump into it, so they're essentially building Oblivion in Skyrim's engine. They've been working on it for years. It's an all volunteer project. Like that type of remake is very cool because it's different. It's a community effort. It's a fan effort.
Yep.
Stop me, please. But
no.
Look, these politicians all day. I don't want to get political on this podcast.
Here we go.
But all day.
Here we go.
Just go and making their stump speeches 6,000 times, going to every swing state. If one of them just uttered the phrase, I will also request Bloodborne on PC and PS5, 60 frames per second, one sentence I think could genuinely get them millions of votes. Don't you think?
The gamers would be activated.
Yeah.
Just abandoned all morals, all ideals, just for that.
I mean, how much farther can they go? Just one sentence. If only they knew the potential there.
Yep.
That would do it. You're honestly right. That's the one that people are really.
I mean, I can't vote, but I would morally vote.
Okay, there we go.
We love a moral vote in spirit. Next up, we have an interview with a familiar face. We've had him on the show quite a few times now at this point. Jason Schreier.
Hello.
Here to talk about his book. He teased it, but it is now officially a thing. Play Nice: The Rise, Fall, and Future of Blizzard Entertainment.
It is. You can see the hardcover version
Oh.
right there.
That's legit. Yeah, that's cool.
It is my like third or fourth time on the show, but my first time without Ralph.
I
So
know.
we're shaking
Better
things
now.
up here.
Yeah, we're not annoying. So I
Wow.
hate that guy.
Wow.
I can do that,
wow.
right? I can just like badmouth him now.
No, because he
Sure.
listens whenever he's not on. He will 100% in the Discord on like Sunday. He'd be like, "Yo, what the hell?"
Just good, fine. You know what, Jason? How are you? You're definitely making the rounds. I've seen you talking about this book quite a bit. How you feeling?
I am. I'm sick of talking about Blizzard, so let's just talk about other things this whole time. No, it's
Hey,
fun.
so what's going on with Annapurna?
Do you guys? Yeah, actually, I mean, I can talk about it. But do you guys want to hear, like the reason? I saw some people like, talking on Discord and stuff about like, oh, Jason's like on every podcast this week, and I want to explain why that is and how the book publishing world works because you guys
Yes.
will find it
I
interesting.
have no idea how the book publishing world works.
So
I'm very
okay, so
interested.
for starters, it's like, I mean, obviously every time someone has a new product to sell, they're going to go out and do press appearances. Like that's a normal thing. So it's not, that's a big part of it, right? Is that just like, I want people to be aware of this book. I'm super proud of it. I want to talk about it. I want people to go and check it out and read it. Whether it's buying it at their local bookstore or going to the library and reading it for free. I don't really care that much. I just want people to read it. But the other thing, and this is interesting, is that the way that books work is that it's really important to get on bestseller lists if you want your book to be a success, because being on a bestseller list means you can put kind of that little decal on your book that is like bestseller. It means it'll get considered for more promotional placements. It'll just help the book do really well. It's not to say a book can't succeed without being on a bestseller list, but it really helps. And the way to get on a bestseller list is not to like sell over a certain threshold of copies. It's to sell over a certain threshold of copies in a single week. And so for me to get on, for example, the New York Times bestseller list, I would have to be one of the top selling books of next week, the week it comes out, for it to be on the best-selling list for that week. That's the way these best-selling list works, is that they're like they're in a week's worth of data. And so it's really interesting because it's more about velocity than it is about total sales.
Wow.
And so like, to give you guys a personal example, my first book, Bloodstone Pixels, it was not a New York Times bestseller. It was like a bestseller on other lists, but not a New York Times bestseller. My second book, Press Reset, was a New York Times bestseller, which was awesome. But the first book has outsold the second book by like exponentially by a factor of like 4 or 5. So the first book did much better than the second book, yet the second book will always be a New York Times bestseller. So you might think the second book did better, but it did not. Just because of the weird quirks of how book publishing works. So the reason you get on all these shows and stuff like leading up to your book is because any kind of pre-sales or day one sales all count towards that one single week sales. So like, it'll be lovely if the book keeps selling and people really like it and people keep checking it out for years to come. But that first week sales is like how you get on the big lists and stuff and get all that buzz and become a New York Times bestseller. So fun little fact about the book publishing world.
That sounds easy. I could do that.
Right? Yeah. All you have to do is get thousands of people to buy your book on the first day it comes out.
No problem.
That's
But this is a big one because it's centered all around Blizzard. Your other two books, you know, you tackled a variety of different games and studios and stuff like that. What made you jump into Blizzard head first? Because I mean, you've covered Diablo a lot, and so was there a kernel early on? How did it go?
Yeah, my first two books were like anthologies of stories, and this one is one big story. And the first two ones were easier, but I was like, I want to do a new challenge. Something that I've always tried to do is just like for each new book, do something a little bit different. The idea for the Blizzard story, it really it started. I would say the seeds were planted. The ideas were kind of planted in 2018, around the time that I first started to hear and then report on Kotaku that like Activision was taking a bigger role in operations at Blizzard. They were getting their noses in, getting their beaks in, as Johnny Sack on The Sopranos would put it. But I wasn't like thinking I would write a book or anything. Really, I started wanting to work on this book in like, it was like March of 2021 that I first started pitching my editor and my agent on and sending out those initial emails being like, hey, I can't stop thinking about this story. And And the original pitch for the story was, this is a corporate takeover story. Like, Activision is taking over Blizzard. Let's look at how this is happening, why this is happening, what it means for Blizzard, and why, like, and the battles between Mike Morhaime and Bobby Kotick. And a lot of that is in the book, but the book has expanded to well beyond that. And I wound up just incorporating a lot more of kind of Blizzard's history and old days of Blizzard and Blizzard's culture and the development stories along the way. And one other important thing that happened is that, like, shortly after I kind of signed my deal to write the book and was planning on writing the book, the California government sued Blizzard and Activision Blizzard for sexual harassment and discrimination, which was a twist that I was not expecting when I was working on this thing. So that obviously became part of the story as well. And I wound up, at the time, reaching out to a bunch of women and, like, doing a Bloomberg story about it. But I knew going into that, I knew as that was happening as well, that I would have to be examining it for the book. And one of the things that you can do with a book that you can't do with an article is you can really take the time to just go back into history and be like, let me trace how this culture happened from the very beginning, which was I think very valuable, to be like, let's look at what Blizzard was in the 90s and how it shaped what became this company that the California government sued for discrimination and misconduct. So that was really giving that story, like, space to explore in a nuanced way, I think is one of the advantages of writing a book in the first place. Like, you can't do that on the internet in any real feasible way.
Where do you start? I mean, like you said, like, going back to Blizzard's history, do you start with the founders, or, like, in terms of getting sources and talking to people, or do you start more recent? Like, how do you also even find, lists of employees, like hundreds of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but like thousands of people who worked at Blizzard over the years? Like, who do you cherry pick? And how do you know that you're not accidentally missing someone really important just because they weren't?
Yeah, because you spoke to over 350 people. That's a lot of people.
It is, yeah. So it's easier in the early days because there are fewer people there.
Yeah.
So what you can do is you can go to Moby Games and you can check the credits for Lost Vikings, for Rock and Roll Racing, for Warcraft 1. And you could be like, okay, here are all the people who worked on this. Let me reach out to as many of these people as I can. Let me see if I can talk to them. And then when you're having conversations with people, inevitably, I almost always ask, like, hey, is there anyone else you recommend I talk to? And so that helps kind of, it's like a tree, like a phone tree, where it like keeps giving recommendations. So that helps a lot. And then, yeah, I mean, a lot of it was credits. A lot of it was, some of it was people I had already known, were sources in the past, or people I had some sort of connection with in previous, like, articles, or just knew of. And then, yeah, it just kind of grew from there as I just was reaching out to people every week and just finding as many people as I could who would talk to me. And a lot of people, I can't really, like, get into exactly who I spoke to, because a lot of people did speak on the record, but then there were a fair amount who spoke anonymously. And then some people who were, like, involved in the story, and I can't say who, because, like, process of elimination would make it very obvious if I said, like, who I did speak to. But some people who were in the story, or some people who, like, were executives at the companies, would only speak for fact-checking purposes, or, like, they agreed to, like, I would send them over, like, a list of, like, here is exactly what's in the book, here is what I'm planning on reporting, do you want to give me your perspective on this stuff? And so those people, I mean, that was very helpful as well, even when people didn't want to use their names, just to hear their point of view on things, even at the base level of, like, me sending an email and them being like, here, I'll respond to this, this, and this. Even just that was helpful. Not as helpful as having them on the record for, like, in-person interviews might have been, but still pretty helpful. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with what I was able to uncover and the number of people that I was able to talk to as a result of this process. And I think a lot of people just wanted to participate in this because they saw it as, like, the one big opportunity, maybe not the only opportunity forever, but at least right now, the only opportunity to participate in this kind of as thorough a chronicling of Blizzard's history, at least as I could make it. I don't think that anything quite like this has been done before. So it's really again, I won't say once in a lifetime, but certainly the first and only thing that exists right now that chronicles Blizzard's history like this in one form.
What was the most surprising thing you found from talking to various folks who worked at Blizzard?
Oh man, there were so many. There's so many. It's like everything.
I mean, the GDC vomit story for me was maybe my favorite thing that I
incredible,
read.
Right? So that's the story. Oh man, Lucy, I gotta tell you, when I the way that I typically do a story like this, any story really, is that like often I'll hear something from one person and then I'll bring it up every time I talk to another person. So like that story, whenever I brought that up to like an old school Blizzard person, I would be like, oh, and yeah, I wanted to talk about that hotel banning story. They would be like, oh my God, you know about that?
I was gonna say, do you want to briefly explain it for folks at home?
Yeah, this is one of the wildest anecdotes in the book. It's from Blizzard in the 90s. I believe it was GDC 2000. And the short version is Blizzard employees got very drunk, clogged the bathtub with their vomit, and wound up flooding a hotel floor, which got them banned from a hotel, seemingly for life. I'm not sure if that's still the case. I was able to track down which hotel it was, and I like even found the name of like the manager who was involved, but I could not get a hold of them for the life of me. But yeah, the police were called, firefighters were called. It was a shit show. Blizzard in the 90s was quite a place, in both positive and negative ways. And it was so interesting recounting that story to people, because like some people were like, oh my God, that was the funniest shit that ever happened to us, and then other people were like, oh my God, that was so embarrassing, I can't believe you're gonna share this with the world. Yeah, but Lucy, I mean, that's one of the craziest for sure. Yeah. There are other kind of wild anecdotes that I have in the book. And then also, like, it's not all kind of craziness and negative stories. I was also just kind of really interested and surprised in kind of a good way sometimes when I heard about some of the just fascinating stories behind some of these games' development and the kind of the lightning in the bottle that they found on games like Hearthstone, where it's like this little indie band within this massive record label that is just kind of like jamming on this little game that nobody knows what to expect from, and then like almost gets canceled 3 different times and somehow turns into this massive hit. So I think I would say the whole story, I mean, I was surprised by both good and bad things.
Yeah.
What was it like laying out Titan? Because that was the part I was the most excited to read about, like, because you had heard about it, and like, you know, we've gotten trickles about like little things here and there throughout the years, but to actually read through it like a story was crazy. So like, where do you start with that? Because to me, it really, like, the way you told it, you really see where it's like, oh, this is definitely becoming Overwatch.
Yeah, man, that was cool. I had done so when Titan was canceled, or at least when Blizzard was public about it being canceled in the fall of 2014, I actually reached out to some folks and did a Kotaku story shortly afterwards that was like, here's what Titan was, and laid out the details about like superheroes and like doing your business life on the side and yada yada yada. But to be able to go in depth and like figure out why it was canceled, get into kind of the challenges, the management challenges that they faced, and a lot of the other kind of intricacies of it, I think was really interesting and cool to be able to do, not just because it's like an interesting story in its own right, which it is, of course, especially if you followed Titan back then and how hyped up it was, but also because of how important that cancellation was for the rest of Blizzard. In both a good way and a bad way, just like before. In a good way in that it led to Overwatch. It led to one of their biggest hits ever and one of the biggest games on the planet. And then bad in that it also led to Activision starting to get in there and start interfering, because that was really the beginning. Titan, like in the past, Blizzard had this kind of string of corporate parents, and so many of them were so messy for all sorts of different reasons. But Mike Morhaime, the CEO, and Paul Sams, the president, and other people in his layer, they were always able to say, look, you just leave us alone, you give us autonomy, you give us time, you let us delay our games a few times, and we will deliver you hits, nonstop hits. Like, they'll grow every single year. And they did. Like Warcraft 2, StarCraft, Diablo 2, like all of these games just kept getting bigger and bigger, culminating in World of Warcraft, which was the biggest thing ever. And for Activision to look over and be like, hey, you promised us if we just like let you cook, you would give us hits, but you lied to us with Titan, then like that changes everything, because to Activision's point of view, like in Bobby Kotick's mind, Blizzard could not be trusted to just deliver hits nonstop anymore, to just have this string of success anymore. It just wasn't the case. And so that led into then Activision was like, we got to bring some adults in the room. You got to hire a chief financial officer. And it was kind of the beginning of the end for Blizzard's, I won't say the beginning of the end for Blizzard, but the beginning of the end for Blizzard's like autonomy, at least in that period of time. We'll see what happens post Microsoft, but that was the beginning of the erosion of Blizzard's kind of independence as its own unit. Again, for better or for worse. And I think people who read the book will see some of the nuance there, and how maybe Activision came in and wasn't all wrong about what they said, but maybe they came in too forcefully. And there are a lot of questions and a lot of kind of complexities that I hope people kind of leave the book coming away with.
One of my favorite things, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but the way the book is broken up by like rise, fall, future. When you get to the fall section and you turn the page, the first chapter of that is just Bobby. So how do you handle Bobby Kotick like as such a contentious person when gathering info about him? Like, obviously you're not speaking to him directly, but how do you filter out, like, I feel like you might probably have a lot of people just coming to you being like, I fucking hate that guy. So how do you kind of cut through a lot of that noise to get the real story?
I actually spoke to a lot of people who were like, I love that guy. That guy, I worked for him and he treated me quite well. There were people who were like, he secretly paid for people's vacations, or like I got a quote from someone. I didn't include this in the book. I think it got cut because it was already kind of, I already captured his personality. But this one guy was like, Bobby is the most ruthless person on the planet. He would like do anything to just like get a win in a negotiation and a business deal, and he will cut you out if he thinks you're a loser. But at the same time, if I had cancer and called him, I know he would go to the ends of the earth to find the best possible cancer doctor for me. And so people who work with him have a lot of stories about his personal generosity to them. There's the skeptics and the cynics in the bunch think of that as all part of a big Machiavellian scheme where he just gives people things as part of like manipulating them. But I mean, nobody could really know the motives of somebody. All they can know is what they're doing. And what people know is that he was generous to a lot of people. At the same time, I think what people really hate about him, and I think this is kind of, even he would admit to this, is his philosophy about making games and running a business. And his philosophy is not to view games as like these precious art forms that entertain people and that people like bring people together. He wants them to be good, sure, but really he sees them as products, as commodities, as soap and shampoo to be sold. And you could tell this because he surrounds himself, and his executives at Activision were all people who came from that world, from Procter & Gamble, from Nestle, from companies that just ship things. And he believed very much in shipping things on time. And when was the last time Call of Duty missed a fall? I mean, he has made it into a factory. And even when it killed franchises, which is another kind of part of this whole thing, is that he'll exploit a franchise, to use his own word, exploit, until it potentially dies. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and Skylanders and Guitar Hero, all these different games and franchises that have just kind of been milked to death. So yeah, a lot of people don't like that way of making games. A lot of people are not happy with that. And when he came in and he would be like, look, and his executives would be like, look, we make Call of Duty and hit every year without failing because we have 1,000 people working on it. Why don't you do the same with World of Warcraft and hire 500 more people so you can get new WoW expansions out the door every single fall?
The link in the chat.
I think people at Blizzard are like, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want World of Warcraft to turn into this like annual factory for new releases. So yeah, the business philosophies that I think not a lot of people would share, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, an Overwatch player, one of the more heartbreaking kind of arcs was what happened with Overwatch. Coming out of the ashes of Titan, they're given, hey, you got, was it 2 years roughly to kind of whip this into shape and ship it? And then everything that they wanted to do with Overwatch 2, it was like, it's rough to read.
I'm doing good.
And it's also amazing that Overwatch 1 at least came out the way that it did.
It's like progress as usual, right?
I wanted to ask you, because like obviously you got this kind of insight into what Jeff Kaplan was like as a leader, and it seemed like he was a little bit...
Whoa, what the heck?
I don't know, it seemed like a good guy. And it seemed that Team 4 kind of... I don't know. We're given a really rough hand of it.
They would run through walls for him.
Yeah. No, I was gonna ask. I mean, where do you think like Overwatch is sitting now? Like, I think we all kind of unfortunately know where Overwatch is sitting now, but like if you talk about where Bobby's plans were for annualization and really milking that thing dry, like how do you think Overwatch is really sitting?
Yeah, I mean, so to a point you made earlier, I think the creation of Overwatch 1 and the fact that that game came together in like less than 3 years, and the fact that that game was such a hit and such a, for a lot of people, smooth development process, I think that was like almost possible for the opposite reasons, or almost, it was almost the
It's
the
a
polar
lot
opposite
of work.
like, the development of Overwatch.
Like, I was actually, when did I start like putting in these cracks in this armor? But I was actually debating, you know, maybe it's a bit much, but I think it's turning out pretty well. The skirt here kind of looks weird though. I need to figure out what's going on here because it looks like, it kind of looks like you know, like a maid's outfit with like the lace. It might be like the waviness of the edge here that's kind of throwing me off, but it doesn't look right. I have to figure out why.
Overwatch 2, Overwatch 1, and Titan also. Like, Overwatch 1 was just this focus, like, we know exactly what we are doing. I have some great quotes from a woman named Rachel Day who worked on that game and was like, the power, the magic of the Overwatch team was this willingness to say no to things, to say no to all the crazy ideas that maybe on Titan we had said yes to. And one of the reasons Titan exploded is because it was too many ideas. Nobody knew where it was going. Nobody knew what the direction was, what the vision was, what the core loop of the game was. They just said yes to a whole bunch of things and threw them all against the wall, hoping one of them would stick, which it did not. Overwatch was, this is Team Fortress 2 with these characters who are like superhero Pixar like imagery and like some League of Legends influence with the ultimates, and this is what we're doing here. Have at it. And it was brilliant, and it came together, and it worked incredibly well. And then after that, what happened was there was a desire from Jeff Kaplan to do PvE stuff. He had this idea in his head that to do like infinitely replayable PvE, and also that PvE would allow more people to come into the Overwatch story and the Overwatch universe, which I think is definitely true. That was the case with a lot of Blizzard's previous games. But then like that floundered a little bit, and there were a lot of reasons for that. But I think the main one is that the Overwatch team was just too overworked. They had too much stuff to do, and they were under-resourced for that. They did not have enough people for that, because suddenly they were being torn in 3 different directions. One was to keep supporting Overwatch 1, one was to make Overwatch 2, and then the third one, kind of unexpectedly, was Overwatch League, just pulling on so much of their time. And like, it was almost, it's you might be shocked at like how much time the Overwatch development team had to spend making stuff for Overwatch League, like team skins and like replay viewers and like some technical features, all sorts of stuff.
I mean, not even that, just like I remember going to the Blizzard Arena and the backdrops, like, oh, you had to have this different view of Hanamura that we can project on the walls and stuff. And yeah, like Overwatch League, I covered the beginning of Overwatch League. I was like, I remember talking to Kaplan at the time, like they were so excited about it because I was like, hey, there's so many more eyes on Overwatch. But also there was this undercurrent of, there were so many more eyes on Overwatch. Like, oh my God. Like,
yeah. And then, I mean, that's a whole nother question about how many of those eyes were really like actually eyes.
After your $20 million buy-in.
Yeah, right. Well, and esports being in a bubble, that's a whole nother thing. But the resources that it took on that team. And then so Bobby Kotick would come in and he would be like, you guys made this hit Overwatch. You guys are awesome. Like, thank you so much. Like, you guys are killing it. Now I want to give you hundreds more people. I want you to make another team. I want you to have the resources you need to be supporting the first game, doing Overwatch League, and doing the sequel. But Jeff Kaplan and his team of leadership was like, no, we don't want to hire hundreds more people. And there were a bunch of reasons for that. All of them complicated.
There's actually 4 armors here.
Some of it is because they were still haunted by Titan, which I think got a little too big when it shouldn't have.
That one.
Another is that they believe very strongly in a culture of like everybody everybody knowing each other, about everybody like being able to communicate, having kind of a shared chemistry and language and way of talking to each other. They just felt like it was making games was much easier and more efficient with a smaller team, and they didn't want to expand and blow up and like become Call of Duty like a soulless factory. And then the other thing, and I think here is where that philosophical difference comes into it, is that at Activision, the commercial org was in charge.
Misses you,
like
by the way.
People who ran the place, who still run the place, are the marketing folks and the business folks and the people who just kind of like oversee everything from a very commercial mindset. And at Blizzard, the kind of the power structure was designed in a way that the game teams had all of the power. The executive producers of the game teams were in control. So like the marketing of Overwatch was overseen by the Overwatch leadership team. The Legos that were made of Overwatch. I have one in Bastion.
I have one. If I was at home, I have the Diva.
It's awesome. Those were like overseen by people on the Overwatch team on Team 4 at Blizzard. Those were not like some separate organization that handled everything, because Blizzard believed pretty strongly, and Jeff Kaplan's team especially believed pretty strongly, that like in quality control, in like making sure it's their brand, it's their baby. So you can understand both sides of the story. And again, this is where I get into nuance and complexity, and I feel like the book will hopefully leave people with...
Oh, sorry. Yeah. He talks about you all the time. I think he's enamored. I'm kidding. I'll turn down the volume on this.
Kind of an understanding of how difficult this all was and why different people had different perspectives. On one hand, you have Bobby and Activision who are like, "Why you guys are taking forever to make Overwatch 2, just like hire more people so you can make this more quickly." On the other hand, you have Kaplan and the Overwatch team who are like, "No, first of all, like we don't want to ruin our culture. We don't want to become more like you guys. Second of all, we don't think it'll actually help us make things all that quickly to do it." And then for a variety of reasons, and this is applicable not just to the Overwatch team but to all of Blizzard, there was just no meeting in the middle. Like there were so many factors preventing them from meeting in the middle.
I think there needs to be some material definition here. It's like the faults are getting lost into the quizzes.
Like, even when I heard this anecdote from quite a few people that like people at Blizzard, even when they knew that Activision like had a good idea about something or might have been a little bit right about something, it was coming from Activision. So they were like, "No, we're not going to listen to that. It's coming from it's coming from the fucking suits."
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things where I saw this making the rounds this week, but as I was reading the book, I think this is just a footnote in the book. The Overwatch Netflix series.
I was also looking into like maybe I can actually add some like mountain scale armor here. So if you look at
pursuing Overwatch as a kind of transmedia thing, because they, it was ripe for it. There were the comic books, but like turning it into that Pixar experience, and you drop that there was this Overwatch Netflix project. Can you talk any more about that and what that would have been?
Yeah, I don't know anything about it, unfortunately, other than it existed. I know that there was an Overwatch.
If you look at this here, right?
There was a StarCraft.
Got some like mountain scale armor.
Yeah, I can't
like
say
all
for
sorts
sure
of these
that they were canceled for this reason, but I think it played a pretty big role.
Contrasting materials.
Netflix
like,
poached their CFO, and
I would assume this is like Rhino skin, because back in the day, China used to use rhino hide as armor.
Netflix is poaching Activision CFO while the two companies were like making deals and doing business.
So we'll do something here to break it up.
Messy situation
and then
there. I think that
things are getting lost.
I don't know anything about what it would have been like, but it's very easy to imagine. I mean, you look at the cinematics they come out with, which are brilliant. And by the way, another big key to Overwatch's success was those cinematics and just kind of the marketing push that they did, which was like an unorthodox marketing push. I talk about this in the book a little bit, but like this focus on like, we just want to get people in the beta, and we think word of mouth will drive everything, which is really interesting. Because Bobby, this is an anecdote I haven't seen reported on or kind of extrapolated from the book yet, so maybe this will be an FBS scoop. But Bobby went to the Overwatch team at the beginning of 2016, and the game was planned for May, I believe, at the time. And Bobby and his people were like, "Hey, like, we're not getting much brand awareness around this thing. Like, people are not really knowing what this is. We're worried that Walmart and Target are not going to be thrilled. They're not going to put it on their top store shelves. Like, this might be a problem.
Now it's like,
we should push it back.
Now it's a bit less confusing. I can make the faults
like Activision style marketing where we have commercials with celebrities, like, you know, how they do business with their Call of Duty commercials. Like, they wanted to take the Activision machine and put that around the
that's
how
marketing.
And the Blizzard people were like, no, first of all, we don't want to delay the game. It's ready. It's going to be ready in May. We want to get it out. Some of us have been working on Titan for 10 years now. We need to get this game out. We're not going to sit on it for marketing reasons. And also, we want to do it our own way. And so this marketing team, led by this guy, John Heineke, started this kind of unorthodox blitz of like putting these short films that they made, the Overwatch shorts that I think everybody knows, on like TV commercials. Like, instead of just having a big trailer for Overwatch, you have like a little short on the end of like, what was it, Better Call Saul or The Walking Dead, some AMC show. It would be like a clip from one of those actual shorts, and then they would all end in like, check out the beta, check out the free beta. And they made the beta available to everybody for free, assuming correctly that like once people started playing it and talking about how cool it was and how good it was, it would just go rapid viral. So yeah, very different approach to the Activision approach, and really speaks to both the fundamental differences there and also how Blizzard still had its mojo even many years into kind of the I guess fall of the company.
It's amazing how many things were canceled. We've always known that like it's what they do, but just how you provide some additional context around a lot of them, where they're usually just little blips.
I'm pretty bummed that the survival MMO that they're making got canceled.
What I want to know from you as like a
I could have scraped a few of their ideas if they did go through with it.
Really got your juices flowing.
Because I'm making a survival MMO
in this book.
So the thing about canceled games is that they're always perfect in our brains, right? Like, they can never come out and be busted and like disappoint us because they're canceled. So they live forever in perfect memory. But the one that I think that bummed me out the most hearing about was this project called Avalon. That was kind of like Warcraft, Minecraft, but to me sounded a little bit more like Dragon Quest Builders. I don't know have you guys played Dragon Quest Builders? It's awesome. Dragon Quest Builders rules.
And then we'll do the same up here.
The kind of style of Minecraft, you pick up blocks, you build things, but it's also got this big story, and the story's really cool, and it's got all these quests, and it really guides you along this narrative path. And I think this game, Avalon, would have had similar ideas.
Just, like, move this
Again,
up
it was
here.
only in development for 2 years, so who knows? It could have gone in a bazillion different directions. But I heard from people who played early prototypes and builds, and they said it was pretty cool, and they were bummed out when it was canceled. So that one is the one where I'm kind of like, oh man, this is a bummer. StarCraft Ghost, I think a lot of people who grew up who were teenagers in the early 2000s, as I was, we're sad about StarCraft Ghost dying, but that was not a surprise, obviously. Like, that was very, very public. We all knew about that. Of the ones that have never been made public, I think Avalon is the one that I was bummed most about.
So the book is called Play Nice. From reading the book, it shows up. I know why, but what made you choose that as a title?
Titles are hard, man. You ever try naming a book? It's friggin' tough. No, I really like it, actually, because it's like, to me, it can be interpreted in a lot of different ways, which I enjoy. The most obvious is a reference to Blizzard's core values, which are a big part of Blizzard's culture. In fact, they are kind of, if you go to Blizzard's campus, you'll see a big orc statue, and then there are these plaques surrounding it, each with a different core value. And one of them was Play Nice, although as the book reveals, they did recently change those core values to new ones. I don't think they publicly announced this yet.
Oh, have they not?
Is this so dark? Is this like a
know that. I didn't realize they'd gone from, was it 8 to 5 or something?
8 to 5. Yeah, I think they were going to announce them publicly, if I remember correctly.
You said you were moving into 3D, right?
It was like right around the time of the lawsuit, not the lawsuit. Oh God, it was right around the time of the mass layoffs earlier this year, and so I think they probably backed away from like being super public about that. But yeah, those are there are new core values.
Have a gameplay took like 8 months.
Refers to core values.
That's how it is.
It's basically saying, hey, players, like, get along, play nice. It's called, the full one is Play Nice, Play Fair. And so that is kind of the obvious one and the literal one, and then I think readers can interpret a bunch of other kind of both ironic and literal. You can extrapolate those kinds of meanings from it in whatever way you choose.
I was going to ask you to kind of start to wrap things up a little bit. Is obviously the book covers the history of Blizzard and this transformation of the company from the frat boy into, this mega successful, into the lawsuits, and now in 2024 the layoffs, and we're in this. It feels like the company's in such a strange period, and as you read through the book, you see through all these periods that it's gone through. What do you think the future of Blizzard holds at this point, with the current people in charge and with Xbox, and now this big exodus of the founders and the big names and a lot of talent, unfortunately, this year?
Yeah, man, if you had asked me this a year ago, my answer would be totally different than it is now, because a year ago, like literally a year ago at this time, October of 2023, they were closing the deal, and then shortly after Microsoft closed the $69 billion deal to buy Activision Blizzard, Phil Spencer was flying around, and he came to Blizzard's campus, and people were lining up to say hi to him and take selfies with him, and he was playing their games. I have the story in the book where, like,
all right, good night, Davey.
And people had prepared,
or is it
like,
Davey?
these
I think it's
PowerPoint
Davey, right?
presentations to show to him, and he was like, "No, I
Take
want to
care.
see the games. I want to play the games." And they were like, "Fantastic!" And he seemed like this, like, benevolent leader who was coming in to, like, save them from Bobby Kotick and his regime. And remember, at this point, because of everything that had happened in the
Benevolent
lawsuit,
leader.
2,000 ABK, Activision Blizzard King employees had all used their names to sign a
Benevolent leader
petition
Kim
calling for
Jong-un.
Bobby to be out of the company, which is unheard of.
Glorious
2,000 people
leader.
all using their real names. And then 3 months after that, Phil Spencer sent out an email that sounded like a Bobby Kotick email, sounded like any corporate, like, executive email saying, because of market realities, we have to reshift alignment, blah, 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 and essentially cut the jobs of 1,900 people, including many at Blizzard.
Rip.
And it was just devastating for people. And then since my book was finished, like, there's been another big layoff, including many people at Blizzard. Many people on the Warcraft Rumble team got hit, for example. And so it feels like they're kind of this savior in Microsoft has turned out to just be another, like, friggin' unstable corporate parent. And now we're at this point in Xbox's history where, like, nobody knows what they're doing. They're at a point of real
buggy and
crisis.
going to be improving a lot
And
of it.
we've reported at Bloomberg,
Yeah,
and
sure.
a lot of people have kind of seen the obvious, which is that, ironically,
Game
as a
dev
result
is
of
very
making this purchase
iterative.
of Activision Blizzard, Xbox is feeling a lot more pressure from its corporate parents at Microsoft, and therefore it is having to show more profits and cut costs and do all the things you do when you're feeling pressure from your corporate parents and your C-suite executives. So nobody really knows what Xbox's plan for the next few years is. I think even at the top of Xbox, they don't know exactly what they're going to do for the next couple of years. And
Oops,
where
I did
Blizzard fits
folder
into that,
file. What?
I
I
don't
don't want a
know.
folder.
I think there was a hope among a lot of Blizzard people that
No
they could
folder.
do more kind of fun little weird experiments, almost like Hearthstone, because they could fit into the Xbox Game Pass model. But I don't know if that's still the case. There's certainly Blizzard's still certainly working
Okay,
on new
now
projects. They're certainly,
it's,
I mean,
like,
they're
more
doing
visually
well in a lot of
clear.
ways. War
I
Within
think
has
this is a
been
bit too pointy.
getting
This is
rave
why
reviews. The new
this
World
whole
of Warcraft
point here is
expansion.
throwing things
I
off
think
a bit.
IGN. I saw an IGN headline that was like the best it's been in years.
Yeah, there we
Um,
go.
Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred is about to come out, and from people I talked to on that team, they're pretty jazzed about that. They're pretty excited about it. Could be pretty good. And Overwatch 2, they had some struggles. As you know, Lucy, you're an Overwatch player. They gutted the PvE part of things, but the PvP, I mean, they're still getting new heroes, still putting out new skins and maps and stuff. It seems like they're doing well too. A lot of people are still playing Overwatch 2. I think what was it? They just removed a few months ago. They removed
Where's
like
that?
paying
Okay,
for heroes from the
okay.
battle pass
Yes.
of Overwatch 2,
Use
right? So
that
it's like
color.
they're transforming that game and making it into a viable kind of future thing. So it's not like their products are doing poorly these days, other than Warcraft Rumble, which obviously did not live up to anyone's expectations. The question is what like new stuff at Blizzard looks like in the future. And by the way, real quick, I know we have to wrap things up soon, but I think like one of the
No one is
pivot points
surprised
in
that
Blizzard's
Microsoft
history
didn't save
is the rise
Blizzard.
of World of Warcraft, obviously the biggest thing on the planet for a long time, and that was pivotal for a lot of reasons that the book gets into. The growth of it was astronomical. Blizzard turned from a company from hundreds to a company of thousands, which completely changed the culture.
I think,
But most notably, I think, or not most notably,
I think a
but
lot
one
of these
notable
companies
thing,
are
I
just
think,
too
is that
big.
World of Warcraft was a service game and turned
Like,
Blizzard into a service game studio.
when a company gets so big, you just can't turn it around anymore. The momentum, the direction where you're going is just, it's just
now it was a company that stuck
like,
with a game for,
how are you
we're
going to
about
turn it
to
around?
approach World of Warcraft's 20th anniversary,
It's
20-year
not
anniversary.
really possible after
And
a certain
so
point.
people have been on what they call Team 2, the Warcraft team, since like
There's too many people, too many
management
managements,
started development. That team has
too
been
many
operational.
checks and balances
So,
that you have to
like,
go through to
this is like a company
do what
that
customers
has
actually want.
switched to service games, and Warcraft and Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 are all that, and that kind of makes it much harder, as we
So it
see
makes
with
it very
Bungie,
difficult
for a company
for
to then also be innovating and incubating new games,
these
the way that
companies to pivot.
like fans might hope if they're looking for a company to like recreate the old days. So yeah, the games industry has changed, and Blizzard has changed quite a lot along the way with it.
Would you do this again? This is the first time you drilled down into one publisher, one studio. Now that you're on the other end of it, you want to do this?
Great question. Probably not. I think if I do another book, I really want to do fiction, so I might explore that next. But if I were to do another nonfiction book, I can't imagine it would be like
Russian
single,
corporate
like,
culture isn't
company
very
case
good at
study the way that
fostering
this one
creativity.
is. Like, I think it would be a different type of story entirely. Because I don't really want to do the same thing again.
I guess the
feel like
question
I
is
got
like,
that
why would
challenge
you?
out of the way? And same thing happened.
Why
After
would you
my first book,
hire
people were asking
soap
me after
a
Blood, Sweat, and
soap
Pixels, which was like
manager
10 different development
CEO
stories. People are asking me, "Oh, you should do a sequel with 10
or
new
CFO
stories."
or
And I was like, "No, I
whatever?
want to do something a little
Someone who
different."
used to
And
work
then
with
I
soap
went to
and
Press
say,
and then this
"Oh,
led
you
to
know
this,
what?
which is
Video
completely
games are just
different,
like
and
soap."
I think if I do a fourth nonfiction book, it will be completely
Like,
different
where
as well. In some
does
way.
that logic
But I don't know. I haven't decided
come
yet,
into
so
play?
I can
And
change my mind again in a few months. So don't hold me.
the
back.
answer is there is no
Big
logic.
fan of your books, so
Thank
just
you,
do something.
Jake.
Please just do something.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that.
When
Well,
you
give me some
operate
ideas.
without
What do you want to
logic,
see a book about?
bad things
Rockstar.
happen.
I'll get
I
back to you on
guess.
that.
Rockstar.
There's the
God, there is
the
a book
lesson.
about Rockstar called Jacked by David Kushner. David Kushner, but it's unofficial. I think it's called like unauthorized, and I don't
I
think
can
you
go
got
ask
access to,
ChatGPT.
like, some
Don't
of the key
forget
Hey,
figures.
the
is
Game
soap like
Changers
games?
on BBC
Are
with
games
Daniel
like soap?
Oh my
Radcliffe.
God.
Yeah, yes. I remember that being controversial for some reason or another.
Wasn't very good.
Hmm.
It's on the
Well-
web archive. You can watch it still.
Thankfully,
should.
this is good. Press. I almost said press reset.
Yeah.
Play nice.
That was the last
Check it
one.
out.
This is
Or is the
Nice.
soap
Yeah,
thing
check it
Ubisoft?
out.
I'm getting confused
I
now
hope people
between
like
all the
it. I
different
hope it resonates
dramas.
with folks. I hope it does well enough that I can keep writing books. That's the key, Jake. Right? It's like it has to do well enough that my publisher is like, okay, yeah, Jason, keep writing books, which hopefully will.
Well, best of luck. Thank you for your time. I'm sure we'll talk to you soon. You'll be on
Yeah,
again,
let's talk.
so.
I'm so sick of talking about Blizzard. Let's talk about something else next time.
All right, man. See ya.
Thank you for having me, Jake and Lucy.
Next up, it's time to talk about what we've been playing. I've talked enough about what I've been playing, Silent Hill. Ben, I want to know about this game you've been playing called UFO 50 because I've seen this on
Yes.
social media a lot. I have no idea what it is. Can you like,
Really?
elevator pitch me? Do
Where have
mind?
you been? Have you been in a bunker in England? What's
Have
going
you
on
not
over there,
been
Jay?
My job.
watching Day of the Devs?
That's all I wanted to listen to. Zeth Ross stream. I haven't gotten a haircut in a while. I can get my hair permed, and then I don't even need to wear an afro. I'll actually have one. Oh, you sent me a link? Yeah. I think YouTube hides links. Doesn't allow links on YouTube. You can post it in the Project Nova Discord in general or off topic. Do you want me to show stream? I can just take a look at it off stream as well. Yeah, I was wondering because you said you wanted to show some gameplay footage. Okay, I'll watch it off stream then. But yeah, props for the commitment, like just going through and just making your own game. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of time involved. I've been spending like a few minutes every day, like learning a bit more about tech. I think I'm gonna need to switch from Modo to Blender. Just because there's stuff like this, right? Gnomon Workshop, creating facial blend shapes using photogrammetry. You can do this in Blender. So stuff like this. Hopefully this isn't like a song that'll get me in trouble. But anyway, like, yeah, I've been thinking about getting this tutorial. I don't know how much it costs, but it's like stuff like that. I'll need to learn how to do that. This will be fun. But yeah, I don't think I can do that in Modo because Modo doesn't support. Whenever I try to animate in Modo, it's like super fucking slow. Just because it doesn't handle deforming textures very well. At least like the version of Modo I have. It's like no one uses Modo anymore. Like it's hard finding documentation. It's like one 50 or 60-year-old dude on YouTube making tutorials about Modo, and that's about it. I might still use it for retopology, but yeah, I gotta use something with a bit more power. Anything with like a perpetual license I can get a hold of. I need to get a hold of. I've been looking into Houdini as well, but that's just like all subscription. Wait, actually Houdini, I think Houdini has a perpetual license. But like it's also like $500. So I better be using it as much as I do ZBrush. It's been a lot so far, but one check at a time. Yeah, that's how you do it. And try not to look at the whole project as like something you have to do, right? You'll go insane if you do that. Staring off into the void of endless work. I think that's how a lot of indie devs like stop making games. They just like look at all the work that they have to do as a whole instead of as smaller components they can slowly break down over time. And they just get overwhelmed. But it's totally possible. Like I already have the base meshes complete in my game for the most part. That's already like a big deal. Have you ever thought about making generic assets and selling them? I have, but you know, like the thing is, there's already a lot of that on the market. Like recently, I downloaded this program here. It's called Cargo. But basically, I'll enter my details here. But it's like by a lot of terms of use. I think I already accepted that, didn't I? We'll view this kit. How do I get this? Can I not like do that just yet? But yeah, like there's like a lot of generic stuff that you can get already. Like this plus Quixel plus textures.com plus like there's like free stuff out there too. There's just like so much assets already created. The only thing that's not created is what I'm working on, which is like characters and like modular stuff, FACS systems for facial animation. So I think if I create generic assets and sell them online, I don't know. I don't think that's gonna work out very well. It might, I don't. Might be like some extra income, some pizza money here and there. It is always good to have like passive income, which I don't have. Yeah. I'd rather just spend that time working on Project Nova. Pick a character pack that's popular and build even a basic set of equipment for it. Nah. It's not really something I want to do. I'm sure there's a demand for it though. I think I've seen stuff around like that. What's that game? Mortal Shell. I think one of the artists who worked on Mortal Shell, they have their own store that does this. Is this it? Yeah, Cold Symmetry. So the guy who worked on Mortal Shell, he has his own store. Wait, is this it? It's like this artist here. I think he has some store somewhere. Yeah, I think they're like selling this Armorhead. Yeah, just like this stuff does exist. People have been making like generic stuff. It's not too generic, it's actually pretty out there, but yeah. I don't know. Like these are all 3D models. Could be something I can do. I kind of want to like evolve out of a 3D artist position though. It's just it's a lot of hard work and not enough pay. So ideally I can get into more of like a game developer role. Like as a 3D modeler, right? You can't always make what you want to make. You just have to listen to other people telling you like this isn't good enough or this needs to be changed to something else. I'm like, you know what? That's just annoying. I wanna do something else and get paid better. I mean, it's not like that for bare metal. Bare metal's awesome, but like in general, like if bare metal went under, I'd have to go find another job like that where it's maybe not as nice as bare metal. The worst part is like getting a job where the person telling you directions doesn't know anything about armor. So it's like, why am I listening to feedback from someone who doesn't know as much as I do about this subject? I just need to get out of a job where there's the possibility of middle management. I need one of those leadership jobs where I tell other people what to do. What's going on here? It's kind of thin here. Oh, you're telling people what to do for Exanima Hell mode. It's funny. And also, like, people like to shit on AI a lot. But I mean, the fact that AI has been able to accomplish so much and actually scare artists into like finding other jobs and stuff like that. I do also have to keep a wary eye on AI, even though I know it's not necessarily the most capable it could be at the moment. Here's something I generated with AI, and it's 3D as well. So we have like a shell. I have like a seashell. I used the image and I just projected it here with the alpha and RGB maps. I use the RGB map as a alpha. Yeah, this is all AI generated. I can use this actually in here. I can actually like use this and warp it around, or maybe like use it to like affix to his belt by turning it into like an IMM. So now he has like a cool throwing star on his belt or something, I don't know. But yeah, that's AI generated right there. Pretty cool. Yeah, it is. I might actually be using more of that. Like, I need to set up Stable Diffusion so I can start producing. Right now, Stable Diffusion is a AI gen image generator. But I can turn those images into 3D models with ZBrush. So I need to set up a pipeline for that. I think I know why this. It's weird. It's like, yeah, there we go. The lines are just like a bit messed up because I was turning them all into plates. Try and make this a little bit more square. $2 plate helms would sell like hotcakes. Maybe. I don't know. I've never tried selling anything. Like, I'd have to set up a storefront and everything. It's kind of a lot of work. And then I also need to be able to give like customer support. I think it's a bit more involved than I might be expecting. Like, it's the same reason why I haven't made a tutorial, I think, on making plate armor. Like, I tried, but it was just like a lot of time. It's a big time commitment to do something like that. I'm worried like setting up my storefront would be the same kind of investment. Use AI to make the assets. I mean, that already exists. People are already selling AI slop on ArtStation. I don't need to contribute more to that. Use your pipeline. No, AI would not help in making plate armor. If people don't know how to make plate armor, how do you expect AI to make plate armor? Because AI operates off of harvesting data and using that to generate whatever it does. So if there's no data out there, outside of like museum examples, you can't really make an AI version of it, can you? It's the fake name. Hash slinging / slinging armor generator coming to a fab store near you. Man, I can't wait to see all the AI shit on Fab. That's gonna be fun. Did you hear Epic is merging all of their like digital fronts, like ArtStation, Sketchfab. I think Sketchfab. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe like the Epic store, the market for developers. They're merging all of that together into one big thing called Fab. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but we'll see. Quixel's going in there too. No more Quixel, it's just Fab. You hear about the drama with the Godot community manager? That shit was pretty funny. The CM kind of went on a social media tirade and started blocking developers from their official Godot Twitter. Started calling everyone like like alt-right and shit. That's pretty fun. They need to hire more people like that. Make our days more interesting. Like, thinking about it, we only have... I'm 30 now, so that means I have like what, 30 to 60-ish more years, depending on if I get hit by a car or get cancer or whatever. So we gotta make those years count. We gotta hire more deranged people for our community managers, just so we can all have a big collective laugh. What happened? I noticed something went down, but I have no idea really. I mean, there's a few YouTube videos that go into detail about it. But basically, the community manager of Godot basically turned it into like an identity politics sort of thing when it never really was about identity politics. And then everyone was like, what the fuck is going on? I set a pretty high bar for the Xanima community as far as the ranged community managers go. Part-time developer, part-time CM. We should like promote just like random people on the Xanima server as like community manager for like the day or for like the week or something, and it just rotates out people. So one day you'll just get something completely batshit insane, and the next is just like normal. That would be great. Rotate in, too lazy for a name as community manager. Yeah. Dizzy gets CM for the day and He starts making mom jokes, but about us, the devs, instead of himself. Oh, we're out of music. Uh No, even better. Instead of promoting people from the Discord, we just like get some random Steam user in the Exanima Steam discussions. We'll promote one of them as a community manager for the day. Give them like full Steam store page access. Let them write whatever they want. Oh no, that'd be so bad. Messing with fire, yeah. Gabe Newell. Gaben will be like, alright, so we're gonna delist Exanima from the Steam page because reasons. We're no longer partnering with Bare Metal Entertainment. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's basically like copying EA's. Have you heard of like EA's plan for like making players do all the work through using like AI? It's like in their investor call about like the future of AI in games and stuff, where they're like just like generating cardboard boxes by putting in inputs. It'll be like that, but like in real life. Community-driven game, community-driven newsfeed. We'll just have the community do all the work. We won't get involved. We'll just collect the money. And that sounds like a very sound business strategy to me. Oh, jeez. I'm gonna go stretch for a sec. You're back. I'm back. It's the part of SRI, socially responsible investing. Oh, I've never heard of that. It's cool though. Let's go break this part up. I kind of want to break everything up into pieces, and then maybe like the next stream I can start manipulating them a bit more. I like to do things in batches. Visually it makes things more congruent. Let's go do this. Like that. And then this piece looks really stunning, Zeth. Thanks. I mean, like, you can combine all of these armors into whatever you want, so like each piece will be modular with everything else surrounding it. So even though I'm making 4 armors, it's really more than just armors. It's the whole system. The whole system of planets. A vast galaxy. It's going to be cloth, leather, and steel. Maybe not leather armor. Just because I might actually merge the two, so it'll be like cloth and leather armor. Chitin armor, which is what I'm working on now, and then steel armor. So there'd be like 3 different grades of armor. And it won't necessarily be like, well, maybe it will be. But it won't necessarily be like light, medium, and heavy armor. They'll mostly be like fashion driven, what you want your character to look like. The edge highlights are a nice touch. Right now, I'm actually just masking this out so I can split it into multiple pieces. So this armor is kind of like stained glass, but instead of glass, it's pieces of invertebrate shell. I might call this like mosaic armor or something. Is Titan armor. If I use that name plus the appearance of the armor, I might get in some legal trouble. It does look a bit similar to Morrowind's armor. Alright, that looks pretty good. We did lose a little bit of detail, but that's fine. I'm gonna... Like, once these pieces are all, like, individual, like, here with good topology, I can really just go over and detail the heck out of these plates. It's just important that the silhouette and the structure is there for me to do that. Breaking up the large plates like this also, because of how like armor and stuff is animated, it'll help sell the illusion that this armor can flex a bit. So when the head goes side to side, it'll also control the collar, right? So if the head goes side to side, you kind of want something here to indicate that that'll do it, because even though like it is broken up into 3 segments, like more visual articulation is a good thing to have. Need to figure out what's going on here. Something is up with this helmet. It doesn't look as nice as it did. Maybe I messed up the proportions or something. Hmm. Also, I'm not a really big fan of the skirt part of this armor. Like, the skirt can be improved a lot. I don't know. Okay, take care, Conrax. Cheers for dropping by. Oops. I gotta go soon as well. Actually, I should probably go right now. It's already noon, and I have to post. Gonna go get some lunch, go work on Exanima. Alright, take care, guys.